Man, oh man, did God knock me down. It's funny, I made this video when God wrecks your plans, and that was the last video I posted. It was all about how me and my husband and 2 sons were moving to Korea for 2 months for my husband's job. I will link that video in the description box below. I went through a process of discernment, wrestling with the decision. I prayed and prayed and prayed so much about the situation. We came to the conclusion that we should all go to Korea for the 2 months. We were gonna be living in a hotel room. I literally lost sleep from the time we made the decision almost every night, just thinking about logistically how to make the trip as successful and positive for me and my husband and our 2 sons as possible. For reference, I have 2 babies under 2. I have a 1.5-year-old Theodore, and I have at the time we were going to be leaving, a 5-month-old. He's now 6 months old. I'm in the middle of that season when we were supposed to be away. I spent every night like thinking of every detail, like every night something new would come up. I have an autoimmune disease. If my body's under a lot of stress, I can end up in a coma. I have ended up in a coma before. That was a real concern for me because of the time difference. My son, Oliver, my younger son, isn't sleeping through the night still. There was going to be a big flight. And flying is trigger for my autoimmune disease. So I was really nervous about that. I got a medical alert bracelet that explained my condition in Korean. So God forbid I did go into a coma and for some reason my husband wasn't there. Even if my husband was there, they'd be able to understand what medication to administer to me to get me out of that coma and hopefully save my life. So these are like things that I'm thinking about every night for 2.5 months, praying about the situation. But there were so many obstacles that we had to overcome to make the trip happen, including like the week, 2 weeks before the trip, I was still overcoming obstacles. God was opening the doors. One big thing I said in my last video is I prayed every day, like, God, open the door if you want the door to be open and close the door if you want it to be closed. Well, the thing about prayer is sometimes God answers prayers and then he, closes the door. Basically, I was absolutely blindsided. Just be careful what you pray for, man. Sometimes I feel like the Lord is teaching me a lot about suffering, a lot about surrender, and a lot about obedience in this season. I actually have like 3 other videos I want to make about the lessons I've been learning in this season of my life because God is teaching me a lot. It's funny, even me saying this, like I do know God is teaching me a lot, but sometimes I feel like I don't see the point in all of this. I say I don't see the point in all this because there is just so much suffering and there is so much sadness. This is so beyond what I wanted. Like everything is beyond what I wanted. I didn't want to go to Korea in the first place, and then I didn't want to be separated from my husband. I didn't want any of this, but this is like the way that God is leading us, and he is teaching me things in this season. Like I do see things I'm learning, but it's so painful and there is so much suffering, and it's hard to suffer. It's really hard to suffer. It's hard when things aren't going the way you want them to. I always pray, God, like let my plans be your plans, because I know God's plans are better than mine. I do know that. But sometimes I have a hard time understanding why part of God's plan is for me to be away from my husband for 2 months and for my sons to be away from their dad for 2 months. My friend Heather from A Catholic Mom's Life, she just recently shared that her husband was away for a year for work. My 2 months pales in comparison to her year. I don't know how she did that. Like I really hope to God I never have to walk that. I think that is such like a hard thing. I love my husband so much, and I know so many people have so many harder crosses to bear, but for me, being away from my husband has been like the most excruciating thing I've ever had to deal with. So anyway, let me get into how all this came to be. This is like the craziest thing because like talk about God's hand in a lot of things. So the day I announced to the world, like the internet, I posted the video explaining like our trip, which I'll link in the description box below. I announced it on Instagram, I announced it on TikTok, I announced it on YouTube that we were going to Korea for 2 months. So we're moving to Korea. The very next day, I was going out to dinner with friends as like a last farewell dinner with some really close friends because I wasn't gonna see them for 2 months. We had a great dinner, such a nice time. I get in my car and I decide to call Matthew, my husband, because sometimes I get like, I know this sounds silly, but sometimes I get nervous when I'm driving home that like something could happen to me. So I want Matt to know that I'm like leaving, I'm en route, so he should anticipate me being home sooner than later. When I call my husband, I just expected to have like a quick like, hey babe, just letting you know I'm on my way home. He was like, I have some bad news for you. My husband, to be fair, like I knew it wasn't gonna be great news, but my husband's a little bit dramatic. Like he really drags out bad news, and what he thinks is bad news and what I think is bad news is normally not the same. Like a lot of times he'll tell me something and yeah, it's like disappointing, anything, but it doesn't, like, it's normally not that upsetting to me. So when he said, I have some bad news for you, I just thought that it was going to be, like, actually the thing I thought was that they were changing the dates, because we had booked our flights and everything. Me and my husband paid for my son's and my flight out of our own money, out of our pocket. His company did not cover that. And his company kept changing the dates of the trip. They kept changing when it was going to be. It was originally going to be October 1st to December 1st. Then it was going to be October 8th to December 16th. Then it was going to be, like, it just kept changing. When he called me and was like, I have bad news, I thought that the dates changed and we were going to be like out of money for these flights, or, you know, we were going to lose money on these flights. But then he pauses for a while, which I also am very impatient. So I was like, just spit it out. What's going on? He tells me, I don't think that you and the boys can come anymore on our trip. My heart sank at first, very upset. And I was like, what do you mean? What's going on? And he said that he spoke to HR. He had never mentioned to HR that we were coming, me and my children were coming, because he didn't feel like it was a big deal since we were paying for everything for ourselves out of pocket, outside of like Matt, the company was paying for, but me and my children, we were paying for out of our own pocket. So he didn't think it would be an issue that we were coming. Basically, someone mentioned to him, because he had told some of his coworkers that we were all going to be flying together because we were all going to be on the same flight, and he just wanted to give them a heads up because I'm sure our sons would have made like a scene, which was something I was really nervous about. That 15-hour flight to Korea it was a 15+ hour flight, not including like the flight before that. So it was going to be a long day. I think my husband ended up traveling for 28 hours from the time he left until the time he got to his hotel room was 28 hours or 30 hours. It was going to be a really long day with 2 babies, and I was very anxious about that trip. So he had told his coworkers that we were going to be on that flight, just to give them a heads up, because I'm sure we were going to be making a scene. One of his coworkers came up to him and was like, hey, I don't think that corporate's going to be okay with your family coming. My husband went to HR and said, you know, I'm planning on my family coming. It's all coming out of our pocket. Would that be an issue? They said yes, 100% it will be an issue, and basically let him know that like he could potentially be fired if we went to Korea with him, which is insane to me. I really still don't understand the whole situation. Don't understand how it could be considered a conflict of interest for me and our kids to come with him for 2 months while he was training, because it's not like I didn't know he was going to be training there. Even if he had like business dinners, I figured he would have business dinners and stuff. I just wanted us, even like if we were together on the weekends, like that's enough. I just wanted our family to be together. That was my biggest priority. That was the reason why I decided, because there was going to be a lot of suffering, as I said, with the flights and everything. I mean, I have 2 babies and my one son is really not sleeping through the night. And although my toddler is, my 1.5-year-old is a very easy child, he still would have not been happy after a 28-hour, 30-hour travel day. So I knew it was going to be really hard, but I was willing to make those sacrifices to keep our family together, because I know everybody loves their husband, and like there are people that have to have separations for whatever reason, but I really love my husband and I rely on him in my life. I didn't want to be separated from him. For me, time is the most valuable commodity there is, beyond money, beyond anything. I never want to spend time away from my husband that I don't need to. When my husband told me what his company had said, the HR person said, I'll ask your higher up and see what they say, but I'm pretty sure the answer is like, no, you should not bring your family. It is against corporate policy for your family to come. My husband relayed all that information to me, and at first my first inclination was like, let's cancel everything. Let's like return everything, because we had spent thousands and thousands of dollars on our flights, on everything. It was so much money. I bought slumber pods so that, because we were all gonna be sleeping in the same room together. I bought things to modify my son's twin bed, because he still sleeps in a crib. So I found this thing that makes a twin bed into a crib. I spent so much money and time researching that I was like, I want to recover as much money as we can, because we have just lost so much money. I have lost so much time, all this effort for what? And now I only have a week's notice to prepare for my husband to leave me for 2 months. So at first I was very upset and just like wanted to scrap everything and try and take control of the situation. But 2 weeks before, I was talking to a friend. We were on a walk and I was saying how, because there was a lot of decisions we had to make during this season beyond just the trip, how some decisions I made because I was trying to rush things, I ended up making poor choices because of it, because I was trying to rush the situation, or I was trying to take control of the situation instead of doing my due diligence and really taking my time to understand a situation. Because I was feeling anxious and wanting to take control, I was making rash choices that were not leading to the right thing, and I could have given myself a little bit more time. So when I get home that night, I'm talking to Matt and I'm like, you know what? I just talked about how I learned this lesson about not trying to act too quickly. We've already lost whatever money we're gonna lose. Me canceling our flight today versus Saturday isn't going to change much. Let's take 2 days to pray on this whole situation and then decide. Because one thing the HR lady that I didn't explain said was, you know, it's against corporate policy, but people do it, and if you don't get caught, then it's not an issue, but if you get caught, then you could get fired. Basically, like, I'm not gonna report you if your family comes, but if corporate finds out, you could potentially get fired. But, you know, people do bring their spouses and it's not an issue and they get away with it. So, you know, take the chance if you want. That was like the information we were left with. I talked with my husband and we decided to take 2 days to pray on it, to discern on it, to not like act too quickly, because nothing was really going to change in the 2 days as far as like us canceling things. We already were out whatever we were going to be out. I went to adoration those 2 days and I went to mass, and in adoration I felt the Lord say to me that it was going to be okay no matter what. He was going to see me through the situation, and that no matter what the outcome, it was going to be okay. And I had peace about it. Well, I had peace that the Lord, it was going to be okay. But I really still wanted to go to Korea. At this point, I had spent so much time trying to hype myself up for this trip, even though I had reservations, that I was like, I'm committed to going to Korea. I have put so much effort into this. I've thought so much about this. My biggest concern about my husband and his job was really the sleeplessness, because we were all going to be in the same hotel room, so I didn't know how good our sleep was going to be, especially in the beginning when the boys were adjusting and we were adjusting to the time difference. That was my biggest concern with him being affected with his job. Otherwise, I really didn't see how his job would be affected, because me and the boys would do our own thing during the day, which is what we do anyway. He'd be going to work. Like, we weren't going to affect his work schedule. I wasn't expecting him to be with us at all, except for on the weekends. I prayed to God in adoration the second day and I said, Lord, let me know. Because like the biggest thing was, if we went to Korea, it would be over our head the whole time. Is it going to be an issue? Is his job going to find out? Could he get fired? The whole time. I am a natural risk taker. Like, I really like to, I like to roll the dice. I'm like, it'll be fine, whatever. My husband is not, and I knew that. He also has the responsibility of supporting our family, and I appreciate that, especially since I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't bring any income in, so there is a lot of responsibility financially on my husband's shoulders with his job. I prayed to the Lord and I said, God, if it will be okay while we're there, I need to know it's going to be okay if we go and we're there. So if that's the case, introduce me to someone today at mass, because I was going to daily mass. Introduce me to someone that is from Korea or like lives in Korea. I went to mass, I prayed at the statue of the Blessed Mother, and then I was leaving and I ran into my friend Allie. Allie and I were talking and she introduced me to this woman. She was like, I've been wanting to introduce this lady. Her friend is a parishioner at our church, and right now she's living in Korea and she'll be in Korea while you're there. I want to give you her number so you'll have someone that you can meet up with and have like their contact information just in case you need anything. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's my sign that it's gonna be okay if we go to Korea. So my husband and I were going on a date that night. We were driving to the date, and I knew by the way he greeted me that I wasn't gonna get the answer I wanted. And I had already decided that I was going to leave the decision up to my husband, because I'm trying to learn how to be a submissive wife, and I'm also trying to respect and support my husband in his role as a leader in our family. And for me to do that, I have to respect and support his decisions for our family. So of course, like, he wants my feedback, but I wanted the final decision to be Matt's decision. I knew what my decision was, which was that I wanted to still go. We're in the car, we're driving, and he said, so what do you think we should do? I told him everything that happened. I told him I went to church. I told him what happened. And he was like, well, I don't think that you guys should go. I just think it's too much of a risk. It will be a huge issue. And his biggest fear was like, we're all in Korea and then he gets fired. What do we do? Like, we'll have to change our flights, spend money on flights that we wouldn't even have because he wouldn't have a job anymore, and all this other stuff. Like, it could be a really, really bad situation. Like, even the hotel room was being paid for by the company. So like, what would happen there? Like, would we have to get a hotel room and all this other stuff? So he was like, I really don't want to risk it, which was the more prudent and wise, safe choice, especially because he is the provider for our family and we do need his job to support ourselves. I didn't handle the answer well, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was just overwhelmingly depressed. Like, a darkness fell over me that I can't even explain, and I'm not fully free of it. Like, it's not, I would say it's like 80% better than it was. Like, the heaviness I felt in that situation, I have not felt despair despair and heaviness like that in years, because it was just so overwhelming to think, one, I had a week to prepare for my husband leaving for 2 months. I have 2 babies under 2. My life was already challenging. Like, having 2 babies under 2 is a lot, and my son Oliver is not sleeping through the night still. It's a lot on me, and at least with my husband being here, I get like 1 night off a week to sleep, and without him being here, I wasn't gonna even get that, which I have not been getting that. And then on top of that, all of the time, effort, money we had put into this trip, I was so despairing. I was dealing with these 3 huge things that would be hard for me to wrestle with. One of them, spending 2 months away from my husband, having the like 202 by myself for 2 months, all of the time and effort gone. And also, I just kind of felt like all of my plans just have been dashed. Like, in my last video, I shared all the plans that got canceled because of the trip to Korea. And then the trip to Korea getting canceled basically made everything even worse, because it was like, now I can't get back the things that were canceled because we were going to Korea. And now I'm not even going to Korea, and I just kind of felt like I had no vision for the next 2 months. Like, I know that sounds very dramatic, but for me, looking forward to things gets me through hard times. And I just felt like instead of things getting a little better, like, at least, okay, yes, Korea was gonna be very hard, but at least there was gonna be adventure in it. There was gonna be new experiences. There was gonna be growth and opportunity and fun memories that we were gonna be making as a family. Whereas, like, now all of that was gone, and I just felt hopeless. Like, I really felt despair and hopelessness. I felt so depressed. Like, the depression, I have not felt depressed like that since college. It was a horrible feeling. I really had to go to the cross and bring it to Jesus, and I'm still going to the cross and bringing it to Jesus. This has been one of the most challenging seasons of my life. There's so much beauty in it. There's so many things that God is doing, as I said, that, and lessons I'm learning, but my God, has it been hard. It has been so hard. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done, or one of the hardest things I'll ever do. Like, I think I'll look back on this season and just think like, wow, I don't know how you did that. It's been so hard. One thing that I have had peace about after I got over like the absolute despair, and it was a week from the time he made the decision to the time I dropped him off at the airport. That was an extremely hard week because I was just wrestling with so many emotions. So like trying to wrestle with the fact that everything had gotten canceled, that I was going to be preparing to be alone, that my husband was leaving me. That anticipation of all of that was very heavy and hard on my heart. And one thing that I did that really helped me was I started running, which I'm not sure is like really a great solution for every situation, but for that specifically, going on runs really helped me channel some of my energy and release some of my energy, and feel like helped me think, because I would get so anxious and overwhelmed by everything going on and all of the fears and trepidation and sadness and loss and things I had to do and figure out with living with 2 babies by myself. I would get so overwhelmed with all of it, like coming into my brain at once, that I could not think. I felt totally paralyzed. Running really helped sort through that like mental junk pile in my head, start channeling my thoughts a little bit, and also feeling like I was taking control. I felt this great fear, this impending doom was coming over me, and all I wanted to do is escape. Running actually helped channel that desire for escape energy so that I could start feeling like I was getting control back over my life, even though in reality, like, we really don't have control over life. We have control over our choices, and we have control over what we choose to think about, but we don't have control over the circumstances of our life, as I'm very much learning. I don't love that your life can change like that. I am really having a hard time embracing that, but I do trust the Lord. I do trust God, and God has seen me through this season. I've had really hard days. I'm on my 4th week of solo parenting 2 under 2. I have 5 more weeks left to go. I have had some really hard days, but there has been so much grace in this season. There's been so much blessing. People have come out of the woodwork to bless me, and the Lord has humbled me a lot in this season too. Not only by like saying like, listen, you don't have control over anything other than your choices and the way you react to things, but also accepting people's help, that you can't do it all alone. Like, I cannot do do it all alone without the people in my community showing up for me the way they have in such like a loving, full way. I could not have gotten through these last 4 weeks. And it is humbling to know like you can't do it alone. Like I know that I need others and I need help. I can't do it alone. It has been very humbling for me and also scary feeling. I feel vulnerable that I have these 2 babies that need me, and like if God forbid something happened, like what would I do? The Lord has just shown me that he will provide in big and small ways. The weekends are really hard for me because that's especially like when Matt would be around. I would get a lot of anxiety coming into a weekend because they're really long and they're really hard. A lot of times like my friends are busy because they have their own families and they're doing things. But each weekend a friend would come out of the woodworks or reach out, or some opportunity would come up to make the weekend like a little better. And I would feel like, okay, I'm okay. Like the Lord provides. The Lord provides in big and small ways. The Lord has provided so much grace in this season. The Lord has provided such good friends. Like I have such great community here. I am so blessed by the people in my life. The Lord has provided. Has it been exactly what I want? No, because I want my husband home with me. But the Lord has provided in this season. Another thing I have confidence in this season is that this was the Lord's hand for Matt to go by himself, because we never would have accepted this job opportunity. When we accepted the job opportunity, it was when we talked through the decision. The decision was a yes because we were going to go as a family. We sat down and talked over the opportunity because it was a really good offer and a really good opportunity. I said, okay, well, what if we all go together as a family? That is how Matt decided to take the job. So we never would have taken the job had we known that I couldn't go. If they had made it explicit when they offered the job, which they should have made it explicit that our family couldn't go, that he had to go by himself, then we would not have accepted the job. Then we had like 2.5 months before he was even going to Korea. It was like a month and a half before he leave his old job. So if we had known at any point in that time that we couldn't go as a family, Matt would have backed out of the opportunity. But because we found out literally a week before the trip, it gave us absolutely no time to back out of it because we needed his income. He couldn't find a different job before the trip happened. Because all that happened, Matt had to go by himself. And I feel that that was like the Lord's hand. Obviously, the Lord wanted Matt to go by himself. The Lord is doing things for Matt in this trip, like going halfway around the world to train and be on his own. My husband is one of 9 children. He has never been alone in his whole life. He went from living with his siblings to living with me. He's never been alone. So for him to go alone for 2 months to another country, he's never left the country, is like crazy. He never would have done that if we didn't have such last minute notice. I believe that was the Lord's hand for Matt to go by himself, and that the Lord wants to do things for Matt in this season. I've been praying a lot of rosaries for God to give us the graces that we need to make the most of this season. I know that these 2 months will pass no matter what. I just want to use this time to the best of my ability. I want to grow as much as I can. I want Matt to grow as much as he can. And I've just been really focusing on praying for us to make wise choices, for us to grow as much as we can in this season and get as much fruit. And another big prayer I've been having is for me to be able to see the fruit of this experience. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you here.